Before we dive in, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy emotional, slow-burn drama that hits hard, consider subscribing so you don't miss part 2. The ring box sat open in my hand like an accusation. Sunlight caught the diamond and threw a thin white spark across the sidewalk. It was a clean solitaire, $3,000 of carefully chosen stone and platinum, the kind of ring most men in my old neighborhood would have worked 2 jobs to afford. I had stood there for 12 full seconds already, waiting for her face to change. Destiny did not look at the ring. She looked at me like I had just handed her a used napkin. "Is this a joke?" Her voice was low, but the people at the nearest cafe table still turned. $3,000, James? After everything we've talked about? After the life you said we were building? I kept my arm extended. The red velvet box felt suddenly heavy. "It's solid," I said. "It's real. I chose it because you think I'm cheap." She laughed once, sharp and ugly. "Look at me. Look at what I wear. Look at the life I already live. And you bring me this little thing and expect me to cry tears of joy?" She stepped back. The hem of her white off-shoulder dress swayed, the black quilted bag on her shoulder. Chanel, authentic, the one she had treated herself to last month, swung with the movement. "I thought you were different," she said. "I thought you understood what a woman like me deserves." Then she turned and walked away. I stayed where I was, arms still out, ring still glittering in the open box, while strangers on the sidewalk pretended not to stare. A waiter at the outdoor cafe cleared his throat. Somewhere behind me, a woman whispered, "Damn." I closed the box slowly. That was the moment the test ended and the real story began. My name is James Adewale Okonkwo. Most people who know me now call me James. The ones who knew me before call me Jay. The ones who work for me call me Mr. Okonkwo, and never quite meet my eyes when they say it. I am 34 years old. I own 3 companies that most people have never heard of, and one that almost everyone has. The public face of my life is a mid-level logistics executive who drives a 5-year-old black Lexus, lives in a quiet 3-bedroom in a respectable part of the city, and still splits the check on most dates. The private face is different. Very different. I learned early that money changes the temperature of every room it enters. People smile wider. They laugh longer. They remember your birthday. They suddenly understand your jokes. I watched it happen to my father when he finally sold the transport company he had built from 2 rusty trucks. Within 6 months, half his old friends had become distant, and half the new ones had become permanent fixtures at our dinner table. My mother used to say, "Money doesn't change people, it only reveals them faster." I believed her. So when I met Destiny 2 years ago, I decided to keep the truth folded away. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner in Lekki. She was 29, sharp-tongued, beautifully dressed, and carried herself like someone who had already decided the world owed her something nice. She worked in pharmaceutical sales. She spoke about targets and bonuses the way other people speak about football scores. She had a laugh that started in her chest and ended in her eyes. That night she told me she didn't date men who still lived with their mothers or who still ordered the cheapest thing on the menu just to impress a woman. I liked the honesty. I liked the edge. I told her I worked in logistics, operations manager. Decent salary, nothing flashy. She nodded like that was acceptable for a first conversation. By the 3rd date, I knew she liked nice things. Not in a cartoon villain way. In the quiet, practiced way of someone who had grown up watching other people have them. She noticed the difference between real leather and bonded. She could tell when a watch was automatic or quartz from across a table. She never asked how much anything cost, but she always noticed quality. I started testing small things. I took her to a mid-range restaurant and watched her face when the bill came. She offered to split it without hesitation. Good sign. I forgot my wallet once on purpose. She paid without drama and never brought it up again. Better sign. I wore the same 2 pairs of shoes for months. She never commented. She simply started buying me small gifts, nice socks, a leather card holder, a bottle of cologne that cost more than she should have spent on someone she had only known 3 months. I began to hope. My sister Nosy was the only person who knew the full picture. She manages one of the quieter arms of the family holdings and has never been impressed by money. When I told her I was dating someone and keeping the truth quiet, she just looked at me over her glasses. "You're playing a dangerous game, Jay. I'm protecting myself. You're protecting your ego. There's a difference." I ignored her. Ngozi has always been the voice of reason I prefer not to hear until it's too late. 6 months in, Destiny and I were exclusive. 9 months in, she had a key to my apartment. 14 months in, we were talking about marriage the way people talk about weather. Casually, then seriously, then with the quiet assumption that it would happen. I began looking at rings. Not the ones in the glass cases at the high-end places. The ones that cost what a mid-level operations manager could realistically afford. I wanted the moment to feel honest. I wanted her reaction to be about me, not about the carat weight. I found the $3,000 solitaire in a quiet jeweler's shop in Victoria Island. Clean cut, good clarity, simple band. The kind of ring a man who loved a woman but still lived inside ordinary numbers would buy with pride. I planned the proposal for a Saturday afternoon outside the cafe we both liked. Public enough that she would feel celebrated. Private enough that she could say no without an audience if she needed to. She said no, not with words at first, with her face. With the way her eyes dropped to the ring and then lifted back to mine with something that looked almost like pity mixed with anger. "Pathetic," she said. The word landed clean. "You brought me a $3,000 ring and expected me to be grateful?" I stood there holding the open box while the world continued around us. People walking, cars passing, the ordinary Saturday noise of a city that did not care about one man's quiet humiliation. She kept talking. "I have been patient, James. I have sat through your budget dinners. I have pretended not to notice that your car is older than some of my handbags. I told myself you were building something, that you were careful with money because you were planning for us. And this is what you give me?" She gestured at the ring like it offended her. "I deserve better than this. Any woman who has been with a man for almost 2 years deserves better than this." Then she turned and walked. I watched the white dress move through the crowd until it disappeared around the corner. The black Chanel bag bounced against her hip with every step. I closed the box. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Ngozi. I ignored it. I walked back to my car, the 5-year-old Lexus that Destiny had never fully approved of, and sat behind the wheel for a long time without starting the engine. The ring box sat on the passenger seat like a small red accusation. I thought about calling her. I thought about chasing her down the street and explaining everything. The companies, the real numbers, the reason I had kept quiet, I did not. Instead, I drove home the long way. The way that took me past the old transport yard my father once owned. The one that still carried the faded company name on the gate, even though the trucks inside were newer and far more expensive now. I parked across the street and stared at it for 20 minutes. My father used to say that the only way to know a person's true shape is to remove the thing they think they need from you and watch what remains. I had removed the money. What remained was the word pathetic. When I finally got home, Ngozi was already inside. She has a key. She always has a key. She took one look at my face and poured 2 glasses of something strong without asking. She said no. I said, I figured. She called the ring pathetic. Ngozi sipped her drink and did not look surprised. And now you want to tell her the truth, so she can change her mind. No, she raised an eyebrow. I want to see how far she'll go, I said. I want to see what she does when she thinks the money is gone for good. Ngozi set her glass down carefully. Jay, be careful. Some tests leave scars on the person doing the testing. I nodded, but I was already somewhere else in my head. That night, I did not sleep much. I kept seeing Destiny's face when she looked at the ring, the way her mouth had tightened, the way her eyes had gone cold. I kept hearing the word, pathetic. The next morning she texted, "We need to talk." I left it on red for 4 hours. When I finally answered, I told her I was free in the evening. We met at the same cafe, different table, same sunlight. She arrived in a different dress, darker, more serious, and sat down like someone preparing for a negotiation. "I was harsh yesterday," she said. "I was shocked. I expected something different." I waited. "I still care about you," she continued. "I still see a future. But James, $3,000? After almost 2 years? It made me feel like you don't take us seriously." I looked at her, really looked. The careful makeup, the expensive bag, the way her posture remained perfect even while she was trying to sound soft. "What would have been enough?" I asked. She hesitated. "Just long enough. Something that shows commitment. Something that says, you understand the kind of life we're supposed to have." "A number?" I said. "Give me a number." She laughed lightly, like I was being dramatic. "It's not about a number." "It is. You made it about a number yesterday, so give me one." Her eyes flickered. 20,000 would have felt respectful. 30 would have felt like you were serious. I nodded slowly. $30,000 for a ring. For the beginning of a life, she corrected. I leaned back. The chair creaked. "I don't have $30,000 for a ring, Destiny." The lie came out smooth. It had been practiced for months. She stared at me. "Then maybe we need to rethink the timeline." "Maybe we do." Silence stretched between us. Around us, the cafe continued its ordinary business. Cups clinking, people laughing, the soft scrape of chairs on concrete. She reached across the table and touched my hand. "I don't want to lose you. I need to feel like we're building toward something real, something solid." I looked at her fingers on mine, the same fingers that had closed around the Chanel bag strap the day before, while she walked away from a $3,000 ring. "I understand," I said. We left without finishing our drinks. That night I called my lawyer. Not about the companies, about something smaller, something quieter. A trust that had been sitting untouched for years, one my father had set up for exactly the kind of moment when a man needed to move money without anyone noticing. I transferred a modest amount into a personal account that Destiny already knew about, the one that looked like an ordinary salary account. Enough to make the next few weeks interesting, not enough to change the overall picture. Then I waited. 3 days later, she suggested we look at apartments together. "Just to see what's out there," she said. "Nothing serious yet." We spent a Saturday walking through places I could never have afforded on the salary she believed I earned. She fell in love with a 3-bedroom in a new development near the lagoon. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a balcony that caught the evening light, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The agent quoted a price that made my fictional salary look like a joke. Destiny turned to me with bright eyes. "Imagine waking up here every morning." I smiled. "Imagine the rent." She waved a hand. "We'll figure it out. People do. People with real money do," I thought. People who pretend not to have it watch carefully. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure increased in quiet ways. She mentioned a friend's engagement ring that had cost more than a used car. She talked about a wedding venue she had just been curious about. She asked, casually, whether I had any family property I might inherit someday. I answered every question the way a mid-level operations manager would answer, carefully, honestly within the lie, always leaving room for hope, but never confirming resources I was supposed to lack. Ngozi called twice to check on me. "You're still doing this," she said the second time. "I am." "And when she fails the test, what then?" I didn't answer right away. Outside my window, the city lights flickered against the dark. Somewhere out there, Destiny was probably looking at more apartments, more rings, more versions of a life she believed she deserved. "Then I'll know," I said. The real turn came on a Thursday evening. Destiny called, voice tight with something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite excitement. "My mother wants to meet you properly," she said. "Family dinner. This Sunday. She's been asking." I had met her mother once before, briefly, at a birthday party. Mrs. Ease was a tall woman with careful speech and eyes that measured everything. She had looked at my car that day the same way Destiny had looked at the ring. "All right," I said. "Sunday. Wear something nice," Destiny added. "She notices." I almost laughed. Sunday arrived with the kind of clear heat that makes everything look sharper than it is. I drove the Lexus to the address Destiny had sent. A quiet street in a part of town where the houses sat back from the road and the gates were higher than a man. Mrs. Easy opened the door herself. She looked me up and down, smiled the practiced smile of a woman who had decided to be polite, and led me inside. The living room was carefully arranged, good furniture, art that looked expensive without being loud. A framed photo of Destiny in a graduation gown stood on a side table next to a smaller photo of a man I assumed was her late father. Destiny appeared from the kitchen in a soft yellow dress, smiling too brightly. "James, you remember my mother." "Of course." We sat. Drinks were poured. Small talk began the way it always does. Work, traffic, the weather, the rising cost of everything. Then Mrs. Eze set her glass down and looked at me directly. "Destiny tells me you proposed." The air in the room shifted. "I did." "And she declined." "She did." Mrs. Eze nodded slowly. "A woman has the right to know what she is walking into. My daughter has worked hard. She has standards. I raised her to have standards." Destiny looked down at her hands. I kept my voice even. "I understand standards." "Do you?" Mrs. Eze's smile did not reach her eyes. "Because from what I hear, the ring was modest." The word hung there. Modest. I thought of the $3,000 solitaire sitting in its box in my drawer at home. I thought of the companies that bore my name in quiet legal documents. I thought of the accounts that could have bought the entire street this house sat on without making a noticeable dent. "It was what I could afford," I said. Mrs. Eze studied me for a long moment. Then she leaned back. "Afford is an interesting word, James. Some men afford what they choose to afford. Others simply cannot." Destiny's voice cut in, soft but firm. "Mama, that's enough." "No," Mrs. Eze said. "It is not enough. If my daughter is going to build a life with someone, I want to know that life will not require her to lower herself. I have seen too many women settle because a man had a kind face and a soft voice." The silence that followed was thick. I looked at Destiny. She was staring at the floor. Her fingers twisted the edge of her dress. I could have ended it right there. I could have told them both the truth, watched their faces change, and walked out with whatever satisfaction that moment might have given me. I did not. Instead, I stood up. "Thank you for the drink," I said, "and for the clarity." Destiny's head snapped up. "James, it's all right." I looked at Mrs. Ease. "You raised a daughter who knows what she wants. That's not a small thing. I walked to the door. Neither of them followed immediately. Outside, the late afternoon light was turning gold. I got into the Lexus, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. My phone rang before I reached the main road. Destiny. I let it ring out. It rang again. I answered on the third attempt. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was different, smaller. "My mother can be intense. She doesn't speak for me." She spoke clearly enough. "James, please, come back. Let's talk properly. Just us." I watched the traffic light ahead turn red. Cars slowed. A motorcycle weaved between them. "I'll call you tomorrow," I said, and ended the call. That night I sat in my living room with the ring box open on the coffee table. The diamond caught the lamplight and threw small white sparks against the wall. Ngozi called. "How bad?" she asked. Her mother called the ring modest. Destiny sat there and let her. Ngozi was quiet for a moment. "And you're still not going to tell them?" "Not yet. Jay, I need to know," I said. "I need to know who she is when the money stays hidden, when the future looks ordinary, when the only thing I can offer is myself and a $3,000 ring." Ngozi sighed. "Some people never show you who they are until the test is over. And by then the damage is already done." I stared at the ring. "I know." The next morning Destiny showed up at my door. She looked like she hadn't slept. No makeup, hair pulled back. The Chanel bag was missing. She wore simple jeans and a plain top I had never seen before. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked past me into the living room and stopped when she saw the open ring box on the table. For a long moment she just looked at it. "I was wrong," she said without turning around. "The way I spoke to you that day, the way I walked away, it was ugly. I was ugly." I closed the door and waited. She turned. Her eyes were red. "I've been thinking about what my mother said, about standards, about not lowering myself. And I realized something. I have been measuring everything by the wrong scale. I have been looking at price tags instead of people." She took a step closer. "I still want the life, James. I still want nice things. I won't pretend I don't. But I want them with you, even if it takes longer, even if the ring is $3,000, even if the apartment is smaller than the one I showed you." Her voice cracked on the last sentence. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who had called the ring pathetic was standing in my living room with no armor and no audience, saying the words I had wanted to hear from the beginning. Part of me wanted to believe her. The larger part remembered the sidewalk, the open box, the way she had turned her back while strangers watched. "I need time," I said. She nodded quickly. "Of course. Take whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere." She left a few minutes later. At the door she hesitated, then leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my cheek. "I love you," she whispered, "even if the ring stays exactly as it is." After she was gone, I stood in the quiet apartment for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and made a call I had been avoiding. Not to Destiny, to the private investigator I keep on retainer, for the rare occasions when the truth needs more than a conversation to surface. "I need everything," I said. "Bank records, travel, messages if you can get them. Anyone she's been speaking to about money or marriage in the last 6 months." Quietly. The man on the other end simply said, "Understood," and hung up. I set the phone down and looked at the ring again. Somewhere in the city, Destiny was probably telling herself the hard part was over. That honesty had fixed what pride had broken. That love had won. She had no idea the real test had only just begun. And neither did I. Not fully. Until the investigators' first report arrived 3 days later, and the ground under everything I thought I knew shifted in a single quiet sentence. The message was short. "You need to see this." Attached was a single screenshot. I opened it. and the world I had carefully built around the woman I thought I might marry began to come apart at the seams. The screenshot was a series of messages, not between Destiny and me, between Destiny and a man named Tunde. The timestamps stretched back 4 months. I read them once, then again, then a third time while the quiet of my living room pressed in from every side. Tunde, has he proposed yet? Destiny, not yet. I'm pushing gently. Tunde, don't push too hard. Men like that scare easy when they think they're being managed. Destiny, I know what I'm doing. The ring will tell me everything. If it's small, I walk. If it's serious, we move to the next stage. Tunde, and if he turns out to have more than he claims? Destiny, then I stay. Obviously. I'm not stupid. There were more. Photos of apartments she had sent him. Screenshots of my LinkedIn profile with notes about possible income. A short voice note I couldn't bring myself to play immediately. And one message that sat heavier than the rest. Destiny. My mother says if the proposal is weak, I should end it clean. No lingering. Rich men don't stay single long in this city. I set the phone down. The open ring box still sat on the coffee table. The diamond caught the morning light and threw the same thin white spark it had thrown on the sidewalk the day she walked away. I called the investigator back. Dig deeper, I said. I want to know who Tunde is. How long? Whether money has already moved. He delivered the rest within 48 hours. Tunde was 38. Worked in oil and gas logistics. Owned 2 modest properties and drove a newer German car than the one Destiny had criticized. They had met at a pharmaceutical conference 8 months earlier. The relationship was not physical yet, at least not according to the messages, but the planning was thorough. She had been running a quiet parallel evaluation. One man who appeared mid-level and careful with money. Another who already displayed the lifestyle she wanted. I was the safety option. Tunde was the upgrade path. Ngozi read the file in silence when I brought it to her house that evening. She closed the folder, removed her glasses, and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "You got what you asked for," she said. "Now what?" "I finish it." "How?" "I give her the choice she thought she was making." "Fully." Ngozi studied me. "You're going to tell her who you are. I'm going to show her. Then I'm going to watch what she does with the truth." She exhaled slowly. "Be precise, Jay. Anger makes men sloppy." I nodded, but the anger was already cold and clean. I waited 3 more days. Long enough for Destiny to believe her apology had landed. Long enough for her to text good morning messages and soft questions about when we might look at rings again. Not expensive, just something that feels like us. On the 4th morning, I invited her to dinner. Not at the cafe, not at my apartment. At a private dining room in a hotel she had once pointed out from the car window and said, "One day." She arrived in a deep green dress that made her skin glow under the soft lights. The Chanel bag was back on her shoulder. She smiled when she saw me. The careful, hopeful smile of someone who believed the worst was behind them. "This place is beautiful," she said as we sat. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," we ordered. She talked about work, about a possible promotion, about how her mother had softened after the Sunday dinner and now asked after me with less edge. I listened. I watched the way her hands moved when she spoke about the future. Halfway through the main course, I placed a thin folder on the table between us. She glanced at it. "What's this?" "Open it." She did. The first page was the screenshot of her conversation with Tunde. The second was a summary of their meeting history. The third was a clean record of 2 transfers she had received from him in the last 3 months. One labeled, "Help with rent," the other simply, "For you." Her face changed in stages. Confusion, recognition, then the blood draining slowly from under her makeup. "James, keep reading." She turned the pages. Her hands began to shake. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet. It wasn't what it looks like. It looks exactly like what it is. I was scared, she said. The words came fast now. I was scared of ending up with nothing. My father died with debt. My mother has spent her whole life stretching one income across too many needs. I watched her smile through it. I swore I wouldn't live that way. When Tunde showed interest, I kept the door open. That's all. You planned to measure my ring against his lifestyle and choose accordingly. She closed her eyes. Yes. The admission sat between us like a third person at the table. I leaned back. The private dining room was quiet, except for the low hum of air conditioning. Outside the tall windows, the city lights flickered against the dark. I have something else to tell you, I said. She opened her eyes. The man you have been evaluating for almost 2 years is not an operations manager. The salary you calculated is not my salary. The apartment you believed was the edge of what I could afford is not the edge of anything. I watched her process the words. I own the companies that employ the people you think I work alongside. My father built the foundation. I expanded it. The public face I showed you was deliberate. I wanted to know who you were when the money stayed hidden. Her mouth opened, then closed. The $3,000 ring was not the limit of what I could buy. It was the test. You failed it in public, on a sidewalk, with strangers watching. Then you came back and tried to rewrite the failure with softer words, while the messages with Tunde continued. Silence stretched. Destiny's voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. You're a billionaire. On paper, yes. She stared at me, as if the man across the table had been replaced by someone else. In a way, he had. I can explain, she said. I can fix this. You already explained. In writing. To another man. Tears finally spilled over. She did not wipe them. I love you, she said. That part was real. The fear was real too. I didn't know how to want both safety and you at the same time without calculating. You calculated me out of the equation the moment the ring disappointed you. She reached across the table. I did not take her hand. Please, she said, don't end us like this. I'll cut all contact with him. I'll tell my mother the truth about everything. I'll wait as long as you need. Just don't throw away 2 years because I was afraid. I looked at her. The woman who had walked away from a ring she called pathetic. The woman who had sat silent while her mother called it modest. The woman who had kept a second option warm in case the first one proved too ordinary. I'm not throwing away 2 years, I said. I'm refusing to build the next 20 on a foundation that already cracked. She began to cry in earnest then, soft, broken sounds that would have moved me once. I signaled for the check. We left the hotel separately. She asked if she could ride with me. I declined. Outside, under the hotel lights, she tried one last time. James, people make mistakes when they're scared. That doesn't mean the love wasn't real. I paused with the car door open. The love might have been real, I said. The loyalty was not. And I have learned the hard way that love without loyalty is just a temporary arrangement. I drove away. The following week moved in a different register. Destiny called, texted, sent long messages that started with apology and ended with lists of the ways she would change. I answered none of them at first. Ngozi advised me to give it a clean ending rather than a slow fade. I agreed. On the 8th day, I met her one final time, at the same outdoor cafe where the proposal had collapsed. She arrived early. No designer bag, simple clothes, eyes swollen from crying that looked unperformed. I sat across from her and placed the red velvet box on the table between us, still closed. I'm returning this to the jeweler, I said. I wanted you to see it one more time. She stared at the box. You don't have to. I do. Because the version of me who bought it believed the woman he was offering it to would see the intention before the price. That version of me is gone. This is the last piece of him. Destiny's voice cracked. I hate who I was that day. I know. I hate that I made you feel small. I know that too. She looked up. Is there any version of this where we start over? With everything on the table. No more tests. No more secrets. I considered the question honestly. The part of me that had loved her still existed. It always would. But the part that trusted her had been dismantled piece by her own words in someone else's phone. No, I said. There isn't. She nodded, as if she had expected the answer and still needed to hear it spoken. We sat in silence for a while. The same sunlight that had caught the diamond on the day of the proposal moved across the table now. People around us laughed and ordered drinks and lived ordinary afternoons. Eventually she stood. I hope you find someone who sees the ring before the price, she said, and I hope she deserves it. Then she walked away. This time I did not watch her go. I stayed at the table until the light began to soften. Then I picked up the box, paid for the untouched drinks, and left. In the weeks that followed, the investigator confirmed that Destiny had ended contact with Tunde. She moved out of the apartment she could no longer comfortably afford on her own. Her mother called me once, voice carefully controlled, to say that her daughter had told her everything and that she hoped I would not speak of the matter publicly. I assured her I had no interest in public stories. The private ones were already expensive enough. Ngozi and I had dinner at her house the night the final report came in. She cooked the way our mother used to, slowly, with more seasoning than necessary, and with the television on low in the background. You did what you set out to do, she said. I did. And I thought about the sidewalk, the open box, the word pathetic, the messages, the hotel dining room, the final conversation at the cafe. I feel lighter, I said, and older. Ngozi smiled without humor. That's what the truth usually costs. Months later, I still keep the receipt from the jeweler in a drawer. Not the ring, the receipt. A small reminder that the most expensive things in a life are rarely the ones with price tags. Destiny eventually found her way to a quieter existence. I know this only because the city is smaller than it pretends to be, and people talk. She is not with Tunde. She is not with anyone who looks like a shortcut. Whether that is growth or simply the absence of better options, I cannot say. I no longer need to know. As for me, the companies continue. The quiet life I once used as a disguise has become something closer to a preference. I still drive the same Lexus. I still split checks when the moment calls for it. And when I eventually look at rings again, if I do, it will not be to test anyone. It will be because I already know who is standing in front of me. Trust, I have learned, is not built in the moments when everything is easy and the numbers look impressive. It is built in the small, unglamorous decisions people make when they believe no one is keeping score. Destiny made hers on a sunny sidewalk with a $3,000 ring in her line of sight. I made mine the day I chose to find out who she was, without the money in the room. Both of us have to live with the results. If this story found you at the right time, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose between the version of someone you hoped for and the version they actually showed you, I hope you chose the truth, even when it cost you the future you thought you wanted. Some lessons arrive wearing expensive clothes. Others arrive in a simple red box. Both can change the shape of a life.